Hi, this is Gary at Webdesign. This is an overview of the new Template 3, or the grid, as I've called it. This is a new template which has some very slick features, some very subtle things added, and it also has a very cool grid layout that can be used for all sorts of portfolios, galleries, introductions to concepts or products. A very, very adaptable and versatile layout. So first thing you see when you load this up is you'll see a very slow animation. You'll see a Ken Burns slow zoom on an image. You're seeing the new latest Paddy Balls stack, which puts a preloading animation. But here we go. Here's the slow zoom animation in the background, and this is used in a few different places throughout. Down here there's quite a little subtle touch, but often when you're putting a photograph into something you need to credit where it came from, or you may want to put some additional information, so you can work out how this is done. The main thrust of this though is a system of rows and columns which are highly adaptable, and down here I've got the first of three main sets of these. When you put the mouse over it, you get a few different effects. So you're getting a zoom in, you're getting a blurring, and then you get this really nice animation of text, and the text is also being scaled up. So this isn't a picture, this is actual text. So of course you can put whatever you like in there, put whatever pictures you want in there, and then each one of these can be linked to wherever you want to go to. And each one, there's a nice flow, there's an overlay on there to make them look a little bit darker, just to make them stand out a bit more on this white background. So if we click on one of these, included in the template are three additional ways of presenting information. So this could, for example, be a portfolio, and this could take you into one area of a portfolio, and this could then be that product. So this has another of the new Paddy stacks, and it's a shadow stack, but what this does, which is unique, is it has a breakpoint. So once the screen width gets small enough, this shadow reduces in size and the padding reduces. So it remains a shadow all the way down to the smallest sizes. So it's really versatile, and it's easy to use. So this is another adaptation of the grid. In this case we've got 4, and you may notice that the text is always centered. No matter what size this goes to, that text will always be centered. You've got full control over when you want to, there we go, when it stacks, you've got pixel perfect control over that, and it remains as 4 distinct columns there, right down to the point where the text here is almost going to start getting too big for this box. And you can go in and by trial and error just adjust that. There we are. Again, the text is centered throughout, and you'll notice that throughout the whole demo. If we now go back to the second one in there, it's a slight variation on that one. Just enjoy the preloader there. Here's the second one. The second one is a variation on the first one. Now, taking away the shadow, we put it on a dark background to show you quite a different effect. And in this case, we now have 5 inside the grid, and there's no other system can do this as well as this can. Again, as you scale it down, you have this nice space around the outside that will then collapse as it gets smaller and smaller. The grid maintains its position, and then as soon as it gets to a point where it gets too small, it'll collapse, and the 5 collapses into 2 and then 3. So instead of having what normally happens in these type of grids is you have one on top of the other, and then you have a huge long series of images. This remains a much more interesting and readable form of a grid. So I'll close that. I have this nice little animation which closes the page as well. And this is the third of the main product introductions. So similar type of thing, but now we have a full size image. And if you look carefully, if you look over on this side here, you'll notice that there's a slow animation. So we've got this really nice Ken Burns animation again. There's many different animations in there, and this is Sections Pro providing these animations. Absolutely superb set of stacks. So we close that down. So moving on down through it, you've got basically 3 columns here. Put whatever you want in there. This isn't a theme, by the way. This is a completely free flow. You put whatever you want, wherever you want throughout this. This is the new shadow stack, just giving a little bit more information about how this is put together. And then this is the real sort of meat and two veg of the template. We've got 4, 5, and then another 5 equal sized ones at the bottom. Each one again has an animation. It's animating this text, and we're zooming. If we go down to this row, instead of having text, we've now got a magnifying glass. But it's basically to show the user that there's something here, there's something to click on, and you can click on these, and if you do click on these, each one will go back to one of those 3 different product presentations that you saw earlier. In here is a slider, but it just shows the concept of putting whatever you want in here. This is a slider running 3 different backgrounds. We've got font awesome symbols here, these will all scale, and we have some fixed text here. Again, it's always centered, they're always centered in all of these. So this is 5 here. Very unusual to be able to have 5 equally spaced ones. Part of the beauty of this is that it'll all scale down nicely. Okay, here we go. So it's adjusted itself now, and it'll go down further and further. Okay, here we are. So now it's gone down to a smaller size, and you can see how what were essentially 5 things inside this row, they've now come down to 3 there, and then 2 here. And then as we go smaller and smaller, it'll all adjust. So the idea is to keep it as short as possible. In a normal grid, this would just collapse into each one of these would be on top of each other, and an image such as this one would be an enormous image. So it makes for a bit of a dull layout. This maintains an interesting layout, and it makes it more readable throughout the whole range of different screen widths. So that's the main grid in here. You can copy these, add them to your own projects. You can duplicate them, you can add more, you can have as many as you want really. You can have 9 across, you can have 11 if they're small. I think 5 works really well, and 5 looks very unusual. This does not look like a RapidWeaver project at all. So moving on down, a bit more explanation of what's going on. Now this is the same type of thing, but now in a coloured layout, and I've made this page 100%. Just to show how effective it is. And instead of having exactly the same type of animation, this is just a fixed location animation, so it just zooms in, but it makes it more engaging. There's a soft blur, and there's a slight zoom in there, and you've got complete control over what you want to do in there. This all remains perfectly usable down on touch and mobile devices too. So again, this is a 3 columns in a row. This is 5 columns in a row. These 2 are sort of dummies with logos in there, but again the text is always centered. So it's a super versatile layout, has all sorts of applications. And then if we come down to the bottom, just a couple more buttons to take you to the original 3 layouts. But one thing that's been added into this one, I'm getting a lot of questions about Google Fonts and how to set them up, how to use them. So with this template, I've included another page, which is an example of text, an example of Google Fonts, and then an example of some of the text effects that can be created. So you can go into this, have a look at how all these things have been set up. If, for example, you wanted to use the Lato font, you could just copy and paste this paragraph or this header here and paste it into your own project. So these are already done. these are guaranteed to work because they're already set up. You don't have to go through any trial and error to see how they look. You can actually compare them all next to each other here. And these are what I consider to be the best ones within Google Fonts. Google Fonts have some great fonts, but they have some awful ones too. These are the slick ones that Google Fonts have got. So there's a whole load of stuff there, and then the final bit, there's a few more examples of how to make these type of changes, how to change the line height, how to adjust the space between the characters, how to make it italic, how to set up a read more, how to increase the size of the text, how to change the color, how to put a link in there, justifying the text. So in this paragraph, in this whole sort of feature here, there's a whole load of things. If you're new to using stacks, this will explain an awful lot of it for you. And again, we have this nice little animation to close the window. So that's really it. That's template 3. It comes with the whole Paddy stack suite. There's now 11 stacks in there. It just would not be possible to create anything like this without those Paddy stacks. And there's a lot of unique stuff going on here that you won't be able to do, won't be able to find anywhere else. There isn't a stack to do this. This is a whole layout using a whole load of special stacks which we've created to do this. So template 3 available now.